This is going to be a quick overview of some special effects that you can do with your photography. Now, some are easier done than others by yourself, but some would definitely work out better if you had somebody helping you. I just want to note also that anything that has an orange text here is a hyperlink, so make sure that you have this in present mode so that you can just click on it, or you'll have to right click on it. But I'm going to just go over everything briefly. Smoke bombs are a really easy effect to add some drama to your images. Now, we are shooting primarily in black and white. However, this could very much carry into advanced photography or your own digital photography by using color. But you definitely want to experiment with them about how long they last and what kind of effect you are actually going for. So definitely experiment first. Another real easy thing to try is dry ice, and it will give a similar effect as the smoke bombs, but maybe a little bit more manageable on your own. This is an example of using a slow shutter speed with flour, common household item. But remember, anytime you're using a slow shutter, anything 60 or below, when an object is in motion, it will blur. So you can see that the figure here is definitely an object in motion. However, I would highly encourage you to use a tripod. This is an example of how you might use an old fish tank. On the left, you can see this is a cloud tank, and they are adding different additives like ink, milk, oil, glitter, food coloring. Those are some different effects that you could add to play around with the opacity of the water. Or even here, this is a way to get some interesting underwater shots or more eye level shots safely with your camera. Now, this example is using a digital camera. You would have to be very, very creative if you're using your manual camera to do that. Now, this is an example of using powdered milk for a milk bath. Again, depending on the ratio of water to powder, you're going to be getting some different effects. But this is an example of how you might even shoot it in like a little kid pool or something like that, or you could try a bathtub. Alexa Mead is an artist that is current and working a lot with milk baths. She actually paints people, and then this milk bath series, she has the models in the water, and you can see the colors kind of coming off. Very cool. Light strands are really interesting for some different effects, and you can get some bokeh lighting here. We'll talk about bokeh lighting in a minute, but that's where you've got these little lights in the background that are kind of blurred out. But I do have some strands of lights for you guys to experiment with. Here is an example of bokeh lighting also, where you're just cutting out basically like little stencils and putting them over your lens. And you can see now when you're looking out into the lights are all kind of the shape of that pattern. But again, remember that these are hyperlinks, so I do have additional information about that. Simply thinking about your lighting situation, you can get some really intense, dramatic light by using windows. So I would encourage you guys, even if you're not going to go around to different places to photograph, even if it's in your own home, really be intentional and look for lighting and eliminate any other distracting elements out of the frame. Moving forward, look at using windows for a softening effect. Again, being intentional about eliminating things in the background that might be distracting. This person is using a very large f-stop. This is their aperture at 1.2, so we know that that is a very shallow depth of field. This slide is talking about light modifiers to add some artistic effects. This is simply holding an object within the trail of light, so that is casting a shadow and creating pattern on your subject. This is easier done with a partner, as you can see in this image, somebody to hold up that light modifier while You are the one taking the picture. Another thing that you could do with light would be to simply project an image, maybe a pattern, something with words, text. You can see an interesting juxtaposition here of a skeletal drawing actually being projected on the person, or here how it almost appears that there are wings coming out of the figure. But this is a really interesting concept, and just chat with me and set up a time before after school to use the projector. Forced perspective has come into play a lot more these days. You can see these on social media quite a bit, but this is a really fun way to create some special effects by just changing your vantage point or using props and really exaggerating the angles of things. Levitation is something that you can create pretty simply, but you do have to do some digital modifications through Photoshop. A broken mirror, again, be very careful with this if you already have a broken mirror or you're planning to break one just for this effect, but don't use anything precious. Go to Goodwill or Salvation Army or someplace like that and get a cheap mirror to break. And the effect of shattering is really interesting to add to your narrative. Soft lens effects are pretty easy to do. It's a little bit hard to see the text here, but this one is using plastic wrap. This has plastic wrap with Vaseline, and this is gauze or cheesecloth. But below you can kind of see the image and the softening effect that it has. So that's an easy one to try. This is an example of long exposure or light painting. This would be done using the bulb setting of your camera. And this is a hyperlink too. And I would definitely research that a little bit more if that's something that you want to try out. Fabric can create some really interesting effects with models in particular, creating different moods. Be thinking about the opacity of the fabric, how much can we see through it. And this is a trend that has been happening more frequently, just unusual settings. Some people have like ugly photo shoot contests where is the most absurd, crazy place that you can take pictures of and still get really cool effects. So you can see here below like a Home Depot or a Lowe's or something using the blinds, or here just in a normal neighborhood. You don't have to go out on some grand photo adventure. You can do it in your backyard, but really be intentional about who you're photographing, how, creating interesting depth of field. Here is another example. This was a Hobby Lobby photo shoot where, again, it pays to have somebody be your prop person so that they could add a little bit of color behind her. And again, these images are really evocative because they are in color, but you don't have to go out and buy a bunch of different props. You can just choose someplace that has interesting things already and take your model there. Now this last slide just has some prop ideas. I'm always on the lookout for different objects that could add a storytelling element to photographs. So a lot of these things I already have in the classroom that you can use. In class, you are going to be doing a photo shoot. Now, you've already completed planning for your portrait assignment. These images that I have posted here are posted by both of the setup areas in the classroom, and these are just ideas that are pretty simplistic, either in pose, in vantage point, the mood being created, or use of very simple props. I've got some magnifiers. This is Scotch tape, rubber bands. You can do some really, really interesting things with very minimal props. Okay, something like this, you would have to probably print something out, some text, or have them holding up a sign, but these are just meant to be inspiration for you, using some of the props that I have laid out for you already. This one, these are actual student images that another teacher shared with me. And again, they just kind of went online or tore pictures out of magazines. I really like that the proportions are mixed, or like that the torn out feature is looking one direction and then the person is facing another. So while I am telling you that you're not having to have formal planning submitted for this in-class photo shoot, you at least want to look at the props that I have, look at some of these ideas, and kind of come up with a game plan, because you're not going to have a whole lot of time to make decisions like that creatively in class. So I do want you to spend time thinking ahead. Well, I hope that is helpful for you guys to think about some different effects that you can use in this project and beyond.